More than 30 countries are watching Sweden's Gripen fighter jet right now. Why? Because a single new engine could give them air power that until now belonged only to the superpowers. The Gripen has always been different. It was designed to be small, fast, and flexible. It can take off from a simple highway strip in less than 800 meters, something few modern jets can do. That alone made it attractive to smaller nations. But the new engine upgrade could take it even further. With it, the Gripen may be able to fly at supersonic speed without using afterburners. This is called Super Cruise. It means lower fuel burn, longer range, and faster response time, all while staying cheaper to operate than rivals. For decades, critics called the Gripen a budget underdog. They compared it to bigger, more expensive jets like the F-35 or the Eurofighter Typhoon. But the world is changing. Many countries now want independence in the skies, the ability to defend themselves without relying fully on the United States or Russia. And the Gripen, with this new engine, could become their blueprint. This is the untold story of Sweden's Gripen engine and why it may quietly tilt global power in ways no one expects. In the 1980s, Sweden faced a serious challenge. It was a small country living next to the Soviet Union, a much larger military power. If war started, Sweden believed its air bases would be destroyed by missiles in the first few hours. That would leave the country defenseless. To solve this problem, Sweden created the BAS-90 system. Instead of relying on a few large airfields, the Air Force could use highways as backup runways. The new Gripen fighter jet was designed for this system. It only needed 800 meters of road to take off or land. This made it possible to operate from short, hidden stretches of highway across the country. The jets could land, refuel, and rearm in about 10 minutes. They required only a small ground crew with trucks for support, not a large base. This meant Sweden's Air Force could scatter, survive an attack, and keep fighting. If missiles hit one location, others would still be ready. In practice, a Gripen could be hidden in forest areas, then roll out to a nearby road, take off, and return to the fight. The concept was not about building the biggest or most powerful plane. It was about making sure planes would still be flying after the enemy's first strike. For Sweden, survival depended on this system, but a concept alone was not enough. The next step was to put the Gripen into real service and test if it could truly deliver on this survival plan. When the first Gripens entered service in the 1990s, Sweden proved that its survival plan was not just theory. The Gripen-e models were powered by the F404 engine, the same family used in the American FA-18 Hornet. They were lightweight, reliable, and built for the BAS-90 system. Each jet could take off from a short 800-meter road, rearm in minutes, and get back into the fight before the enemy could strike again. By the early 2000s, Sweden introduced the Gripen C/D models. These had better avionics, new weapons options, and longer service life. And for the first time, the Gripen became an export product. The Czech Republic and Hungary, both NATO members, brought the Gripen into their air forces. They needed a modern fighter, but they also needed one they could afford. The Gripen fit that role. It was far cheaper to operate than larger jets like the F-16 or the Eurofighter Typhoon. It also came with Sweden's unique model of dispersed operations, using roads and hidden bases to keep aircraft safe even under attack. For smaller European states, this was not just a fighter jet. It was a defense strategy in one package. The Gripen showed that a small, affordable jet could protect national airspace and still fit seamlessly into NATO's structure. By the mid-2000s, the Gripen had built a reputation as a reliable, cost-effective backbone for air defense. But Sweden wasn't finished. The next step was to evolve the jet again, making it larger, more advanced, and more powerful than ever before. By the 2000s, Sweden needed the Gripen to take a major step forward. That step became the Gripen-E/F, known as the next generation. At the heart of the upgrade is the GE F414 engine, the same family used in the American Super Hornet. It provides much more thrust than the older F404, extending range and enabling supercruise, the ability to fly supersonic without afterburners. The new design also carries 40% more fuel, giving pilots more time in the air. Inside, the jet became fully digital. Its sensor fusion system combines radar, infrared, and electronic data into one clear picture. The main radar, the ES-05 Raven AESA, offers a wide field of view and strong tracking ability. Working with it, The Skyward G infrared system can quietly detect enemy aircraft without giving away the Gripen's location. This allows smaller nations to achieve the kind of awareness once reserved for major powers. But how does a jet designed to be light and affordable actually fight like a heavyweight? The Gripen's real strength is not only its sensors or agility, it is the weapons it carries. For beyond visual range combat, the jet can fire the Meteor missile. With a range of more than 150 kilometers, it can hit enemy aircraft long before they close in. This missile uses a ramjet engine that keeps pushing even in the final stage, giving it a higher kill probability than most rivals. For close-range battles, the Gripen uses the IR-IST missile. It can lock onto targets with extreme accuracy, even if the enemy tries to break away. The Gripen also carries the RBS-15 anti-ship missile. This weapon can travel over the horizon, strike naval targets, and sink large vessels. With cruise missile options, the jet can even hit ground targets hundreds of kilometers away. What makes this remarkable is the Gripen's size. It is about half the weight of an American F-15, yet it can carry an arsenal that threatens ships, ground targets, and enemy aircraft at long distances. For small nations, this turns the Gripen into more than just a defensive fighter. It becomes a tool for deterrence, able to strike back against much larger forces. The combination of Meteor for the skies and RBS-15 for the seas means a small fleet of Gripens can cover both air defense and offensive missions. A fighter this light carrying weapons of this scale is rare, but the current focus is shifting. Because the real buzz is not about the missiles, it is about the engine upgrade and how it could change the Gripen's role even further. What exactly is happening there? The gripen-e/F already runs on the GEF-414 engine, a proven design used in American fighters. But Sweden is looking beyond it. The goal is to give the Gripen an engine that delivers more thrust, better fuel efficiency, and potentially even hybrid electric assistance. Studies are underway on concepts that would let the fighter stay in the air longer, respond faster, and use less fuel. A more powerful engine would mean shorter takeoff runs, even with heavy weapons. It would also make supercruise, supersonic flight without afterburners, easier to sustain. This is important because afterburners burn fuel at extreme rates, limiting range and endurance. Cutting that dependence gives pilots more time to stay in the fight. There are also ideas of integrating hybrid systems. These could provide bursts of extra power when needed, or run quietly for certain missions, reducing heat signatures that enemy sensors can track. If Sweden moves forward, this would be the biggest change to the Gripen in decades. It would shift the jet from being seen as just a lightweight fighter to something closer to a strategic tool for small and mid-sized nations. For countries that cannot afford fleets of F-35s or heavy twin-engine jets, a Gripen with this kind of engine becomes very attractive. It could give them the ability to defend airspace or strike targets at longer ranges without breaking national budgets. The buzz is clear. This engine is not just about performance. It is about redefining what smaller nations can achieve in air combat. So what could a new engine like this actually unlock in combat? A stronger engine would turn the Gripen into something very different from the lightweight fighter it was in the 1990s. It could give the jet big jet performance while keeping its small size and low operating cost. One of the key advantages would be supercruise-like flight. This means the Gripen could fly at supersonic speeds without using afterburners. The result is lower fuel burn and the ability to cover longer distances on the same load. Another benefit would be faster climb rates. A Gripen could take off from a road, armed with missiles and fuel tanks, then climb quickly to intercept targets before they crossed Swedish or Allied airspace. The new thrust would also extend combat air patrol endurance. Instead of cycling aircraft back to refuel often, Gripens could stay on station longer, giving smaller air forces more coverage with fewer jets. Extra engine power also supports advanced sensors and data systems. Modern warfare requires fighters to control drones, share live targeting data, and run electronic warfare suites. All of that demands energy, and a higher output engine makes it possible without sacrificing performance. Taken together, these upgrades would make the Gripen a true force multiplier. It would remain affordable, but it could perform missions once limited to larger fighters with twin engines and higher budgets. The image is clear. Gripens lifting from hidden roads, fully armed, climbing fast, and then vanishing into the supersonic range without needing afterburners. But this raises the next step in the story. Why should the world care about Sweden's engine program? The Gripen's future is not only about Sweden. It is about how other countries can afford real air power in a world where fighter jets are becoming more expensive every year. The United States pushes the F-35, but its cost to buy and operate keeps it out of reach for many nations. That gap is where the Gripen fits. Take Brazil, for example. It is not just buying Gripens, it is co-producing them with Saab. This partnership gives Brazil not only new aircraft, but also technology transfer, helping it build its own aerospace industry. In Eastern Europe, nations that once flew older jets are upgrading from the Gripen CD to the newer E model. For them, the choice is simple. Keep air defenses credible without the crushing cost of stealth fleets. Even mid-budget NATO allies see value. They know they cannot afford to maintain large squadrons of heavy fighters. But with the Gripen, they can still field a fleet capable of serious air denial, backed by long-range meteor missiles and modern sensors. For a country that cannot buy dozens of F-35s, a Gripen force offers a practical solution. It allows them to control their skies, deter larger powers, and avoid over-dependence on outside suppliers. This is why the engine upgrade matters so much. If it delivers, it will not just change Sweden's Air Force. It could shift the balance for 30 nations already watching closely. So does this engine change global power forever? Or is it simply one more step in a longer competition? The Gripen's rise does not mean it will replace the stealth fleets of the United States or China. It is not about becoming the top jet on the planet. Its impact is different, and in many ways, just as important. The Gripen's design makes it dispersed and survivable. Because it can launch from highways and rearm quickly with small crews, an enemy cannot shut down a nation's air force simply by striking a few big air bases. This changes how wars are planned. Airbase strikes lose much of their power when the aircraft they target are already spread out and mobile. The Gripen also widens access to credible air defense. Instead of air power being limited to the richest nations, smaller countries can now field fighters with long-range missiles, advanced radars, and electronic warfare tools. That means regional balances tilt. For decades ahead, a handful of Gripen squadrons could deter much larger neighbors by making invasions far more costly. The true effect is not measured in who has the best jet. It is in how many countries can now defend themselves without being dependent on one or two great powers. It is about how other countries can afford real air power in a world where fighter jets are becoming more expensive every year. The United States pushes the F-35, but its cost to buy and operate keeps it out of reach for many nations. That gap is where the Gripen fits. Take Brazil, for example. It is not just buying Gripens, it is co-producing them with Saab. This partnership gives Brazil not only new aircraft, but also technology transfer, helping it build its own aerospace industry. In Eastern Europe, nations that once flew older jets are upgrading from the Gripen CD to the newer E model. For them, the choice is simple. Keep air defenses credible without the crushing cost of stealth fleets. Even mid-budget NATO allies see value. They know they cannot afford to maintain large squadrons of heavy fighters. But with the Gripen, they can still field a fleet capable of serious air denial, backed by long-range meteor missiles and modern sensors. For a country that cannot buy dozens of F-35s, a Gripen force offers a practical solution. It allows them to control their skies, deter larger powers, and avoid over-dependence on outside suppliers. This is why the engine upgrade matters so much. If it delivers, it will not just change Sweden's Air Force. It could shift the balance for 30 nations already watching closely. So does this engine change global power forever? Or is it simply one more step in a longer competition? The Gripen's rise does not mean it will replace the stealth fleets of the United States or China. And if Gripens spread worldwide, what happens to superpower dominance? Sweden set out to build a fighter that could survive the first strike. In doing so, it may have created a model for the world. The Gripen is proof that nations don't need endless budgets to defend themselves. With road bases, quick turnarounds, and now the promise of a new engine, it shows how smart design can balance against brute force. From its early AB models to the modern EF, the Gripen tells a simple story. Small nations can fight smart and stay independent. And that idea could ripple far beyond Sweden. Because if many countries adopt this model, the balance of air power will not only belong to the biggest spenders, it will belong to those who prepare differently. For more deep dives into military technology that flips the balance of power, make sure to subscribe and tell us, Is the Gripen's greatest strength its cost, its weapons, or its new engine?